Okay, get ready to dive into some serious mystery today, folks.
Sounds intriguing.
We're talking about the O.T.O. Ordo Templi Orientis.
Ah, yes.
And to guide us, we've got excerpts from Francis King, The Secret Rituals of the O.T.O.
A book that certainly doesn't shy away from the, shall we say, more hidden aspects of this group.
Exactly. It jumps right into the deep end with the 1917 Manifesto of the O.T.O. It's supposed to introduce the group, but it also mentions it was designed to be, get this, intentionally deceptive.
A fascinating tactic.
What do you think they were trying to emphasize or maybe hide?
Well, on the surface, the O.T.O. wants to appear as a benevolent organization, right?
Right.
With this ancient lineage that goes all the way back to the Knights Templar.
Oh, yeah, the Knights Templar connection. That definitely caught my eye.
Offering spiritual enlightenment through these Masonic degrees.
Okay, so kind of like a traditional fraternal order.
Precisely. But the book, it reveals some cracks in that facade. A lot of those claims, particularly their connections to mainstream Freemasonry, were highly disputed, to say the least.
So it's like a carefully constructed public image.
It seems that way. This deliberate misdirection, it suggests a conscious effort to control their public perception, even if it meant, well, bending the truth a little.
I see. A bit of PR spin centuries before social media.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, what were they trying to protect? Or what image were they so determined to project?
That's a great question. But, speaking of the Knights Templar, that whole connection is like something out of a Dan Brown novel.
The Templar connection.
It's just so intriguing.
Oh, it's a recurring theme in the history of occultism. The book highlights how, especially in the 18th and 19th centuries, so many groups popped up claiming a connection to those medieval knights.
Like who? Give me some examples.
Well, you had the Royal Order of Scotland, and then there was the Strict Observance. Groups like these, they used all sorts of things. Fabricated documents, elaborate legends.
To do what?
To link themselves to the Knights Templar. It was a way to tap into that mystique, the romance surrounding the Templars.
Ah, so it's about legitimacy then.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They used it to legitimize their own claims of secret knowledge and spiritual authority.
I see. So they were basically borrowing the Templars' brand, so to speak. But why the Templars? What was it about them that made them so appealing to these groups?
Well, think about it. The Knights Templar were shrouded in mystery and intrigue even during their time. Their suppression by the church.
Right.
The rumors of hidden treasure and secret rituals, all of this fueled speculation and fascination for centuries.
Yeah, they became almost mythical.
Exactly. Almost a blank slate onto which people could project their own ideas about, well, spirituality, power, rebellion against authority.
Right, a symbol ripe for the taking.
Precisely. So the O.T.O. wasn't unique in trying to claim a piece of that legacy.
Okay, so they were playing the Templar card, but how did their particular brand of Templar-inspired occultism come about?
Well, the book points to a figure named Karl Kellner.
Karl Kellner, all right.
He's considered the founder of the O.T.O., although the book suggests the roots are even more tangled. He was a wealthy German industrialist.
Okay. Sounds like he had the resources for this kind of thing.
And like many occultists of that era, he traveled extensively. India, the Middle East, always searching for that esoteric knowledge.
The classic occultist's journey.
Right. And around 1896, he claimed to have rediscovered the secrets of sexual magic. He believed it was at the core of Templar teachings.
Wait, hold on. Sexual magic.
Yes.
Now, that's something you don't hear every day. I always thought of the Templars as warrior monks, not, practitioners of that.
It is a surprising connection, but the book makes it clear that for Kellner and later the O.T.O., sexual magic was absolutely central.
Wow. So they're not just a fraternal order then. This is getting a lot more interesting.
They even went so far as to claim that it held the key to unlocking Masonic and Hermetic secrets.
Really? So they saw sexual energy as a pathway to spiritual power, hidden knowledge.
You got it. That's exactly what they were saying. In fact, there's a 1912 edition of the Oriflamme, their publication, that explicitly states this.
Okay, now I'm really curious about those rituals. But before we get into that, I want to know what happened after Kellner. Did his ideas just die with him, or did the O.T.O. evolve?
Well, when Kellner died in 1905, the leadership passed to Theodore Rees.
Theodore Rees, okay.
And Rees, he really wanted to expand the group's reach. He started granting charters, establishing national orders, and he even connected with some influential figures in the growing occult scene.
Interesting. Anyone we might know?
Well, the book mentions a connection with Rudolf Steiner.
Wait, Rudolf Steiner,
The very same.
the founder of anthroposophy. That's a surprising connection.
It is. You don't usually associate Steiner with, well, secret societies.
Yeah, he's more known for education and spiritual development. So what was his involvement with the O.T.O?
Rius gave him a charter to form a group called Mysteria Mystica Eterna.
Mysteria Mystica Eterna. Okay.
It seems to have been connected to O.T.O activities in Berlin. So Steiner had his fingers in this pie, too.
Later in life, though, Steiner downplayed this involvement.
Probably for the best, I imagine. Trying to explain that on your resume.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
But it's clear from the book that he was involved at some point.
Fascinating. And speaking of fascinating figures, we can't forget Aleister Crowley, the wickedest man in the world.
Crowley's involvement is certainly a major turning point in the O.T.O's history.
How did he get involved with this group?
He met Rius back in 1912,
Okay.
and by 1925, he did become the head of the order.
Wow, so he rose through the ranks pretty quickly.
He did. And with Crowley came his own distinct ideas, particularly his philosophy of Thelema, based on his Book of the Law.
So Crowley took over the O.T.O. Did he change it completely?
Well, it wasn't quite a hostile takeover.
Okay.
Crowley saw himself as building upon what was already there, expanding the framework. He revised rituals, integrated Thelemic principles, and even created the Gnostic Mass for the O.T.O.
The Gnostic Mass, huh? But he maintained that he was working within the lineage established by Kellner and Rius.
So a bit of both continuity and change.
Exactly, a complex evolution.
Sounds like it. It seems like each leader added their own layer to the O.T.O. But where did it go from there? Did Crowley's version survive?
Crowley's O.T.O.
Right.
Well, after his death in 1947, Karl Germer became the outer head of the order.
Okay, Karl Germer.
He was a devoted Thelemite, but he faced challenges.
Like what?
Legal battles over Crowley's work.
Oh, copyright issues.
That's right. It led to factions claiming to be the legitimate O.T.O.
So multiple groups saying, we're the real deal.
Exactly. And the book makes a really interesting point.
What's that?
Legally speaking, no one group can definitively claim that title.
So there can be multiple O.T.Os out there today, each with their own interpretation.
It's possible, almost like a choose-your-own-adventure version of occultism.
But how can they all be the true O.T.O. if there's no clear lineage or leader?
The book offers a different perspective, one that's less about rigid structure and more about aligning with the spirit of the teachings.
So less about a specific organization and more about connecting with a specific energy or knowledge.
Precisely. Any group tapping into that current, connecting with the higher forces, as the book calls them, could consider themselves part of the genuine O.T.O.
Okay, that's a pretty fascinating idea. It's making me think about those rituals and degrees again. We need to unpack that degree system a bit more.
Sure.
There's a whole system, right? And each degree, according to the book, has its own ceremonies and teachings.
Yes, that's right. Under Rhesus, it was a system of 9 degrees, building upon, or at least claiming to build upon, Masonic foundations.
Okay, but with the O.T.O's own spin on things.
Oh, definitely. And remember that 1917 manifesto we talked about? The deceptive one.
The one designed to mislead, yeah.
Well, it claimed that members would automatically receive equivalent Masonic degrees.
Which we know wasn't true at all.
Not even close. It highlights how they were manipulating public perception.
Using familiar terms to mask their real activities.
Exactly.
So they were borrowing the language of Freemasonry, but adapting it to their own purposes. Okay, so tell me, what kind of occult twist did they add to these degrees?
Each degree seems to represent a stage in this journey of spiritual awakening, self-discovery.
Okay, I like that. A spiritual roadmap.
And the book gives us some intriguing details. For example, the first degree, the Minerval degree, is all about the concept of truth.
Truth. Big concept.
The candidate is blindfolded, stripped naked.
Whoa, hold on. Stripped naked.
Yes, and then led through a series of symbolic actions. It culminates in a ritual cleansing with water drawn from a well.
It's like a symbolic death and rebirth,
Yeah.
stripping away the old self.
You got it.
Wow, intense. So as you move up the degrees, do the rituals get more, well, elaborate?
Oh, definitely more elaborate.
More intense. Intense, yes.
Give me an example. What about the second degree?
The second degree shifts the focus to Thelema, or will.
Oh yeah, Crowley's big idea. The candidate takes an oath, declaring, "There is no God but man."
There is no God but man. That's a pretty bold statement. What does that even mean?
It highlights their focus on individual empowerment, self-deification.
So divinity is found within, not from some external authority.
Exactly. But it raises a question that the book kind of hints at, this tension between individual will and this hierarchical structure with all its hidden knowledge.
That's a good point. It does seem kind of contradictory.
If they believe in individual freedom and will, why all the structure and secrecy?
Right. Why not just let everyone find their own way?
Maybe they saw these rituals, these degrees, as a necessary scaffolding, a way to guide individuals towards realizing their own divinity.
So it's like a map, a guide, but
Yeah.
you still have to walk the path yourself.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. But I'm curious about those higher degrees. What other secrets were hidden in those levels?
Well, the rituals become even more symbolic, even more dramatic. The third degree, for example.
Or the third degree.
It involves a symbolic death and resurrection experience.
Death and resurrection. Wow.
The candidate, they're bound with cords, weighed down, and led around the temple.
Sounds intense.
And all the while, the other members are chanting. It's designed to create this sense of disorientation, vulnerability.
So they're pushing the candidate to their limits.
They're forcing them to confront their fears, their limitations.
Like a trial by fire almost.
In a way, yes.
But what's the purpose of putting them through all that?
It seems to be about breaking down the ego, stripping away that illusion of control.
To prepare them for something bigger.
For a deeper level of spiritual understanding, they're being initiated into the mysteries of the universe.
Mysteries that can be both terrifying and liberating.
Exactly.
Okay, you've got me hooked. What about the Lodge of Perfection and the fourth degree? What happens there?
That's where we see a real fusion of Masonic symbolism with the O.T.O's own interpretation. The fourth degree, it focuses on the sacred and mysterious name of God.
Drawing on the Masonic legend of Hiram Abiff,
You know your stuff.
the architect of Solomon's Temple.
Right. But the O.T.O takes it a step further. They explore the hidden meaning of that divine name, its power to awaken spiritual enlightenment.
So they're digging deeper into these ancient symbols and myths, reinterpreting them through their own lens.
Exactly. They're cracking a secret code, revealing layers of meaning that are hidden to, well, the uninitiated.
Okay, this is fascinating stuff. What about the fifth degree? The book mentioned something about a mystical lecture.
Oh, the mystical lecture. In the fifth degree, it goes deeper into the symbolism of the Holy Royal Arch degree of Freemasonry.
Traditionally, that's about the rediscovery of the lost word of God, right?
Right. But the O.T.O, they suggest that this lost word, it represents something else, a hidden spiritual power.
Hidden within each individual.
Exactly, waiting to be unlocked.
So again, it's not about an external deity. It's about that spark within yourself.
That's the recurring theme.
I'm starting to see a pattern here. Each degree, building on the previous one, this journey of self-discovery, empowerment.
It's all connected.
But let's talk about the sixth degree. That's where things get a little, well, controversial.
Controversial is one way to put it.
That's where they introduce the worship of Baphomet.
You got it.
Yeah.
The sixth degree, the candidates formally initiated into the Order of Kadosh.
The Order of Kadosh.
A high-ranking degree traditionally associated with, you guessed it, the Knights Templar. And the ritual, it's filled with powerful imagery.
Like what?
A simulated tomb, blood oaths,
Blood oaths? Are you serious?
and of course the unveiling of Baphomet.
Hold on. Baphomet, isn't that the goat-headed deity that the Templars were accused of worshiping?
The very same.
That seems like a pretty controversial choice for a spiritual symbol.
You're not wrong, but the O.T.O was never afraid to embrace controversial symbolism.
That's for sure.
Baphomet, for them, represents a fusion of opposites, a transcendence of duality.
Okay, explain that to me.
It's a symbol of the union of the spiritual and the material,
Okay.
the divine and the animalistic. They're reclaiming a symbol that's been demonized by society
Reinterpreting it.
as a representation of spiritual power and enlightenment.
Okay, that's actually a pretty fascinating way to look at it. It makes you think about symbols in a whole new light.
Mm-hmm.
But those higher degrees, where does this journey ultimately lead?
The seventh and eighth degrees, they delve into even deeper mysteries. Advanced magic,
Okay,
Kabbalah,
all right.
the nature of consciousness itself, but the ninth degree, the highest
The
level,
peak of the mountain.
that's where things get truly mind-bending.
Hmm.
The book, it only hints at what's taught there, but it mentions the creation of a homunculus.
A homunculus, you're kidding me.
I wish I were.
Like a tiny artificial human created through magic. This is some serious Frankenstein stuff.
It definitely stretches the boundaries of imagination. But the concept of a homunculus, it's been around for centuries. You find it in alchemical texts, occult writings.
So not a new idea.
But for the O.T.O, it seems to represent the ultimate expression of their magical aspirations, the ability to harness the power of creation itself.
They were aiming to create life. Literally. What was the purpose of that?
The book doesn't give us a clear answer, but it's fascinating to think about.
It is.
Maybe they saw it as a way to prove their mastery over nature, to manipulate the building blocks of life.
Could become like gods themselves, wielding the power of creation.
That's a powerful image.
That's both awe-inspiring and a little terrifying, isn't it?
Absolutely. It raises those questions about ambition.
And the ethics of that kind of power.
It's heady stuff, but we should probably circle back to Thelema for a moment. It's so central to the O.T.O, especially under Crowley.
Right. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. It sounds a bit, well, dangerous. A recipe for chaos, maybe?
It's definitely a phrase that's often misunderstood. Thelema isn't about indulging your every whim.
It's not about just doing whatever you want.
No, it's about aligning your will with your true purpose, discovering your unique path in life, and living in accordance with your highest potential.
So self-discovery, but with a cosmic dimension. Okay, so it's more nuanced than just do whatever you feel like.
Much more. And for the O.T.O, that seems to be the goal of their teachings, to guide individuals to the realization of their true selves.
Their divine potential.
That's it.
It's a compelling idea, I have to admit. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to go back to that phrase that keeps popping up about the O.T.O seeking to rule the world in justice and righteousness. Was that a real goal or just part of their mystique?
That's the question, isn't it? And it's one we'll need to keep exploring as we go deeper.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat. We've covered so much ground, but it feels like we're just getting started. It's really a head-scratcher, isn't it? This idea of ruling the world. On one hand, they've got these elaborate rituals, these secret teachings, a very clear hierarchy.
It does seem to point towards a desire for control, maybe even a kind of spiritual elitism.
Yeah, exactly. But then they emphasize this individual will, the idea that everyone has the potential for self-deification.
It's almost like they're holding two opposing ideas at the same time.
It's a puzzle. How do you reconcile those two things?
The key might be in how they saw the connection between, personal transformation and societal change.
Okay, interesting. So did they think that by becoming more spiritually advanced, they could somehow elevate humanity as a whole?
It's possible. Or maybe they had a more concrete plan, like a strategy to influence things behind the scenes.
Maybe they saw themselves as a kind of spiritual vanguard, leading the way to a new era, even if it meant working in the shadows.
It's a fascinating thought. But for now, let's circle back to those rituals for a moment.
Okay, back to the rituals.
The degree system, as described in the book, it's complex.
It is. It's a lot to take in.
Is there a way to understand the logic behind it all? The purpose of all these stages?
That's what I'm hoping to figure out.
Well, think of the degree system as a kind of map, a guide for navigating the path of, spiritual awakening.
A spiritual roadmap. I like that.
Each degree represents a stage in that journey. It's about shedding limitations, confronting fears, and ultimately discovering your true potential.
So it's not just about accumulating knowledge or power. It's about transforming yourself.
Exactly. It's about pushing those boundaries of consciousness, exploring the hidden depths of the human psyche.
And transcending those limitations.
You got it.
I'm starting to understand why they incorporated those dramatic elements into the rituals. It's not just for show, is it?
It's about creating an experience that shakes you to your core, that forces you to confront those deep-seated fears and desires.
Like those ancient mystery cults, where initiates would undergo trials and ordeals to prepare for a higher level of understanding.
There are definite parallels there.
The O.T.O drew inspiration from all sorts of sources, didn't they?
They did. Ancient and modern, weaving together threads from different traditions to create something that was uniquely theirs.
That eclecticism is really evident in the book. You see elements of Freemasonry, Eastern mysticism, ancient Egyptian mythology, even alchemy.
They were trying to create a synthesis, a fusion of all these different streams of esoteric knowledge.
They saw themselves as inheritors of a hidden tradition, a lineage of wisdom that had been passed down through the ages.
And by combining these perspectives, they thought they could unlock a deeper understanding than any one tradition could offer.
Okay, let's talk about some specific examples. We already touched on their Minerval degree that focus on truth. But what happens as you move up the ladder? How do those teachings and rituals evolve?
Well, in the second degree, the emphasis shifts to thelema.
Right,
The candidate takes an oath declaring, there is no God but man.
right. Which really emphasizes that idea of individual sovereignty and self-deification.
But it goes beyond just asserting your will, you know? It's about aligning your will with your true purpose, that divine spark within you.
So it's not just about power, it's about self-discovery, understanding who you truly are and what you're meant to do.
Exactly. It's about breaking free from limitations, societal expectations, those limiting beliefs.
Embracing the fullness of your potential.
Yes.
It's a powerful message. But how did they translate that into practice? What did those rituals in the second degree actually involve?
The book is a bit vague on the specifics, I'm afraid,
Okay.
but it does suggest that the rituals used a combination of things. Symbolic actions, visualizations, affirmations.
All designed to help awaken the candidate's sense of personal power and purpose.
Right. It wasn't just about intellectual understanding, but about embodying that understanding on an experiential level.
Got it. So what about the third degree? The one with the symbolic death and resurrection? What's the ultimate goal of that?
The third degree, it seems to be about confronting your shadow self.
The darker parts of our nature that we often try to hide.
Exactly. Facing those fears and limitations head on.
Integrating them into a more complete sense of self.
You're getting it. It's like a form of psychological alchemy, turning darkness into light.
And they saw a connection between psychology and spirituality, right?
They did. They believed that understanding the human mind could help unlock the secrets of the universe.
So it's not about escaping this material world into some spiritual realm. It's about finding the divine within ourselves, within the everyday.
That's it. They believe that the divine isn't separate from us. It's woven into the very fabric of existence.
Okay, I'm starting to get the bigger picture here. The O.T.O system is about transformation, about awakening to our true nature and our place in the cosmos.
That's a great way to put it.
But those higher degrees, what about those?
The Lodge of Perfection, the fourth degree, it marks a turning point.
Okay.
The candidate encounters the sacred and mysterious name of God.
Which is a central concept in both Masonic and Kabbalistic traditions.
Exactly. They drew on these ancient traditions, but they weren't afraid to reinterpret them to make them their own.
And what about the fifth degree? We talked about the mystical lecture before.
Ah, yes. The mystical lecture in the fifth degree delves into the symbolism of the Holy Royal Arch degree of Freemasonry.
Which is traditionally about finding the lost word of God. But the O.T.O took it further, suggesting that the lost word represents a hidden power within each individual.
Right, waiting to be discovered and unlocked.
So again, it's not about finding some external deity or secret knowledge. It's about discovering that divine spark within.
It's a journey of self-discovery.
It seems like each degree is like a step on that journey, leading the candidate towards empowerment.
That's a good way to see it. The O.T.O system, guiding the initiate towards spiritual unfoldment.
Okay, this is all incredibly fascinating, but I have to admit, I'm still a little stuck on the sixth degree and that whole Baphomet thing.
The sixth degree is where things get really intense.
It is. It's the one with the simulated tomb, blood oaths, the unveiling of Baphomet.
It's all designed to create a powerful, transformative experience.
Okay, but why all the drama?
It's about a symbolic death and resurrection, you know.
Okay.
Leaving the old self behind, those fears and limitations of the past, and embracing a new level of understanding.
I can see how that would be a profound experience. But that Baphomet imagery, why choose a symbol that's so associated with the occult?
Well, they weren't afraid of a little controversy.
That's for sure. But what does it actually represent in their system?
For the O.T.O, Baphomet wasn't a symbol of evil. It was a representation of duality, a fusion of opposites.
Okay, I'm listening.
It embodied the masculine and feminine, the spiritual and the material. It's about recognizing that wholeness.
So acknowledging both the light and shadow within ourselves.
Exactly. Baphomet is a symbol of integration. It's a reminder that true spiritual growth requires acknowledging all parts of ourselves.
Even those we might find uncomfortable or challenging.
That's it.
It's a powerful message. And it definitely makes me rethink what I thought about Baphomet. What about those even higher degrees? Does it just keep getting more intense?
The seventh and eighth degrees delve into even deeper mysteries, exploring advanced concepts like magic, Kabbalah, the nature of consciousness.
Right.
But the ninth degree, the highest level, that's where it gets truly mind-boggling.
Okay, hit me with it.
The book mentions the concept of the homunculus.
The what?
A homunculus. this tiny artificial being that they believed could be created through alchemical processes.
Wait, are we talking about Frankenstein's monster here?
It's more complicated than that.
Okay.
The homunculus is a multi-layered symbol. It's been interpreted in many ways. Sometimes it's seen as a literal being, a miniature human created through magic.
Okay.
Other times it's a metaphor for the spiritual self, that divine spark within each of us that can be nurtured through spiritual practices.
So, like the ultimate expression of their philosophy of self-deification, they were trying to create life in a very literal sense.
It's possible. It could be seen as a symbol of their ambition to transcend the limitations of ordinary consciousness.
To achieve mastery over the forces of nature.
Exactly.
It's awe-inspiring and a little terrifying.
It is.
This idea of humans trying to become like gods. But we've covered a lot of ground here, from those early degrees to the concept of the homunculus. I still keep coming back to that question of ruling the world. Was that a real goal, or was it symbolic?
It's the big question, and I'm not sure there's an easy answer. The O.T.O is a complex organization.
That's for sure.
They embraced individual freedom, but also hierarchical structure, esoteric knowledge, but also practical magic. It's full of contradictions.
So maybe there isn't a simple yes or no answer.
I don't think so. They were striving for something beyond the limitations of ordinary consciousness, but they were also products of their time.
With all the complexities that entails.
Exactly. And maybe that tension, that paradox, is what makes them so fascinating.
This has been a truly incredible deep dive. We've explored their history, those rituals, the philosophy, even that controversial use of sex magic. And I have to say, I'm leaving with more questions than answers.
But that's often the case with these kinds of explorations, isn't it? It just sparks more curiosity.
It does. And that's what we want, right? To encourage people to keep learning, keep exploring.
Absolutely.
So to all our listeners, what do you find most fascinating about the O.T.O? What secrets do you think are still hidden in those rituals and teachings? And do you think they were truly serious about ruling the world? Or is that just part of the mystique? Keep those questions coming, and happy researching.